Oh, what an amazing River Thames carp, like they all are. You never know what you're going to get, and in this day and age, that is something to relish, let me tell you. You know, we're late in the year now, we're into November. Soon the river will be completely unfishable, as it always seems to be whenever you really want to get into it. I turned up last night, no pre-baiting or anything, I was just ever so fortunate. I've dropped onto some fish, and I caught two very early this morning, this being the bigger of the two. And he's just magnificent, I think. And wow, yeah, what a roller coaster it's been the last year or two. All started off when I realised a lifetime ambition and managed to get myself a boat so I could fish on the River Thames. And man, it's been a wild ride. An emotional roller coaster, a financial roller coaster, and just the most amazing carp fishing journey. Like most things in life, it's not until you get a bit older you realise that timing is everything. And certain things make that time a little bit more pressing. And I got to a stage in my life a couple of years ago where I could realise a long-held ambition of owning my own boat on the river. I didn't have loads of money, I've never been mega wealthy or anything. But you know, you do what you can with the money you've got available. And having seen firsthand the speed at which things can be just taken away forever, it sort of spurred me. You know, I was motivated to get a boat. I looked over the winter, and like most things on eBay, you know, if you keep looking, something will pop up. And it did pop up. I found a little boat. Now, boats are 10 a penny, but you have to remember that, you know, I had a vision of having it on a trailer so I could fish up and down the length and breadth of the river and, you know, spend 1 week at the top sections of the river and then move my way down and be able to flit around between the two, baiting, and you know, I could see a lot of option if I had a boat on a trailer at my disposal. I am all about experience. I've always been about experience in every aspect of my life, whether it's throwing myself into things completely unprepared and way over my head like I did as a kid. But for whatever reason, I've always thrived on it, I've loved it. And the more out of my depth and the more against the odds that it's been, whether that's in fishing, like, do you know what? I'm a fool to myself, but most anglers are fools to themselves, if truth be known. I relish it, you know, I relish it. And I really enjoyed it. I was completely cold. Got to remember, I've never driven a car with a trailer on, never reversed a boat into the river, it was a whole new world that you have to adapt to. And I did my very best to adapt to it. I think any angler, whether you're a carp angler or not, you know, there's always a thing about the river, isn't there? You know, when you're a kid and you fished on the canal and the river, or were near a weir pool or any moving water, you had that smell. And memories fade, but one thing that never fades is your sense of smell. If I smell watermint, I'm instantly transported back to being a teenager on Long Life and the Kongs Club and the fisheries and all those clubs that I grew up fishing. You know, that those were the smells that resonated hugely with me as I was a youngster. And the river's the same. You know, you get on, as soon as you get near the river, you've got the smell of the river, haven't you? And it doesn't matter what you fish for, how old you are, how experienced you are. There's just always that thing about the river. And of course, as you get older, like, especially for me as a carp angler, I've been carp fishing 35 years and I've done a massive amount of it. And you just want a little bit of freedom and a little bit of an escape and a little bit of all the things that you used to hark back to when you were a child. And it is this sort of thing. Can I have a quick scoot up there, Rich? Yeah. I just want to see how deep it is. I like to see how deep these channels are, because a lot of the time you can rule them out straight away, can't you? Oh man, wrecking's everything. Of course it is. It's the same in you know, I can turn up at a gravel pit and wait till I see something to go on. But let's be honest, if I turned up at the river waiting for sea stuff to go on, man, it could be a year wait before you get anything to go on. Especially doing this. I mean, this is the whole reason I bought a boat. Not just for the freedom and the escape, but also because, I mean, today we've just been out for a little look, but I bet we still do 10 miles or close to it, you know. I don't always bring the echo sounder. I tend to bring the echo sounder on my first trip to somewhere, and then I go up and down and I make a note of any particularly deep spots, but that's all it's really for. Everything else is by eye. Look, you know, you've got a nice channel, the main flow channel, an island, another island, a couple of back channels that are shallow, and when you actually look at them, they're not that great a spot, but from the bank they look absolutely incredible. And I'm sure that at certain times in the year carp do get in these sort of areas, but for the most part they're not, you know. There's not tons of anglers about. There's one over there as we speak, funny enough, but there's not tons of anglers about. And you know, you need to bait. You need to find an area that's presentable, that's at the right depth, in the right area you feel for that time of year, and you need to get something going. It's absolutely critical. I fish all the time, so the boundary between escape and the real world is so blurred in my life, because my life is one big escape. But coming back to the river, I feel born again, absolutely born again. Over the course of that summer, of course I was finding my feet. When you're 16, you get your first moped and you go out, you crash it straight away, and your mum says, oh yeah, and then they buy you a car and you do the same with your car. And it's very similar on the river. You have to find your feet, you have to learn some river sense. I had a really good time looking up and down the river, as far as Oxfordshire and as down as far as the tidal and everywhere in between. I scoped out everywhere. And with the looking also comes some fishing. I specifically, me being me, I didn't want to go to areas where the better known areas, because I was going to encounter anglers. And like the whole thing about Operation Escape was, I don't want to see any anglers. I spent 35 years looking at anglers, sat opposite me under a little green dome picking their nose. I've had enough of it, you know. I've had a lifetime of fishing around other people. And of course, like fishing being fishing, as you sort of progress through your angling career, for want of a better description, you know, your views and needs and wants change. And I just wanted to be on my own and find fish that nobody else were catching, in areas where nobody else was fishing, a tall order. Oh, lovely coffee. Well, morning. Welcome to my humble abode on the River Thames. We're somewhere on the middle reaches. of this beautiful river. And I've chose this for many reasons, as I'll get onto later, but more importantly than anything, this is a glimpse of proper England. It's a lovely piece of river, loads of floating gym palaces all around, beautiful homes, great trees and great scenery. And I feel that this is the perfect place, the perfect place for doing this sort of thing. I've been recceing quite a few stretches, not just for the fishing, but also for the access. The whole thing from when I decided to do this was that I needed to be mobile, but more than that, I needed to be able to fish any stretch. As easy as it would be to get a friend to come and help me launch, I absolutely didn't want to be tied to anyone or anything. This is, if I'm sat at 10 o'clock at night at home and I think I'm going to the river, I should be able to go to the river. I've put everything in place around me that I can go fishing. I can go every day if I want. And that's the difference. I can go every day. I can get up in the morning and think, I'm going perch fishing today. It's already loaded with kit. It's always loaded with kit. Not just my carp kit either. I've got a float fishing rod for catching live baits. I've got my barbel rod, my perch kit. The river is more than just carp fishing. And when I decided to do this, it was always going to be more than just carp fishing. How many carp do you need to catch? I've caught tens of thousands of carp. Big ones, small ones, and everything in between, from every style of venue all around the world. So what do you do when you get to that point? You've evolved as an angler, you evolve as an angler, you evolve as an angler. What do you actually want from your fishing? Well, this is what I want from my fishing. I want a bit of freedom, and I want a bit of mystery. And mystery in this country is a rare commodity these days, sadly. So that's where we're at. I want a bit of mystery. I'm quite happy to sit here and fish stretches that are unknown or with very little form for carp and do what I know as an angler to try and catch them. And if I caught one, even if it's an 8-pounder, it doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter. So for the purposes of this filming, this is exactly what I did. I've gone away from all the stretches that I know around lots of the areas that I fished for a long time. It's got to be new to me. It's always, a new vista is vitally important to my enjoyment. And I found this stretch. I looked at it on Google Earth. It's quite a short stretch, as Thames stretches go. There's a big marina on the stretch, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. While it's a massive holding area, they can also spend large amounts of the year living in there, especially if they're fed, which of course they are by most of the people that live on the boats. And I've done what I can do. I've picked somewhere that should be nice to film, somewhere with very poor public access, somewhere that I've not heard about lots of people fishing. And I've lined it up. I've baited, done a bit of baiting over the last week. I've baited twice in the last 8 days, quite heavily. Looked at the flow, looked at it on Google Earth, worked out where the flow goes. But there's many variables. And this year, the river's low. It's clear, it's full of weed. Now that's problematic in itself. But moreover, it's problematic because it's clear. If you look over the side of the boat here, it's like I'm moored in a lake. It's tap clear. The bottom's pretty bland, there's bits of weed out there. It's not great for the fishing. So I've used what little flow there is to my advantage. Comes out of a weir, round all the islands, down a big bend, then the flow's pushed across, because of the bend it's pushed across to the other side where it's caught again, meanders round another bend, and basically, you'll see shortly, I'm moored on the tail end of a chain of islands. I'm out the flow here. I'm not obstructing anybody that's likely to be coming up in a boat, because these are all things, again, that you need to consider. You look at a spot and think, oh yeah, that's good, and you moor up there, and within 2 minutes you've got people shouting at you because you're blocking the river or you're moored close to their house, or all these things. And I'm not doing this to cause friction with anybody. This is about my own personal escape from life and to do a nice bit of fishing that no one else is doing. And that is it in a nutshell. I picked this spot on the end of the islands. I'm casting across to a big line of boats that goes all the way down river. It's 10 foot deep, it's hard, it's interspersed with weed. There's a big marina below me. And I'm just, I'm doing what any angler would do. I'm looking at the chessboard and thinking, what is the move? What moves have I got to make? I've baited close to the boats, spread it out 20 yards. I give it a big hit the first time, not just boilies. I mean, krill boilies will catch them from anywhere on this planet, especially when they've been soaked a while. The flow is releasing loads of smell over a long time. You're thinking about your approach. The first time, I didn't just put boilies in, put lots of corn, lots of hemp, lots of soaked pellet. I want everything in on the party. I want the roach, the chub, the bream, everything that could possibly be in front of me or somewhere nearby to come in and feed freely, then obviously the next time I bait, I knock all the rest of it out. It's just bigger boilies. I have to be honest with you, with this sort of fishing, I've done enough of it to know that when you bait up on the river for any amount of time and you drop in, I'm expecting to catch those carp immediately. I expect them to be there like a dog by his bowl waiting to be fed, because like any food source is a big thing in the river. Something, say it all the time, something is everything from my canal fishing days. But the river's very similar. If you drained the River Thames and walked it, it's just like a gravel road. There's very little topographical variation. It's quite boring, quite bland. So, you're making something of importance by way of putting a big bed of food down. So yeah, that's where we're at. I've done my night. It's not the carpiest or the best filming conditions today, but it is a lovely autumnal day. And the first time Rich and I came out and did a bit of a recce a couple of weeks ago before I went to France, it looked very different. It just goes to show, in just 2 weeks, we've not even had a frost yet, but I came back the other day to bait up and it was flat calm. The river was covered in red oak tree leaves where the oaks have shed all their leaves. And I sat this morning and realised, it's looking good, it's beautiful. And I'm hopeful that we get a carp, but I'm pretty certain that we probably won't get one today. So that may necessitate a move and a different change of scenery for tonight, we'll see. Lovely day, useless fishing day, but just lovely to be out. Proper autumn. Look at that shot. That house is beautiful, man, that big house. Well, here we are. We've motored down another stretch from where we were fishing to a small town, because although I am obviously a professional and self-sufficient in everything I do, the camera team are very hungry and are talking about strike. So I've brought them to the nearest town. We're going to get some food. The weather is not fishing weather, of course, but it is lovely times boating about and viewing things weather. I've seen a couple of lovely girls on the way down here, which is always a bonus. We're going to go for a little walk. Well, I'm not. I'm going to stay with the ship, like all good captains do, and the boys are going to go off and get some lunch, and then later on we're going to motor back up river, through the lock, back onto the stretch we were on originally, and decide what to do for the night. I've come back to my original spot. For the reason is I got breamed and didn't actually fish the whole night, so there's every chance there could have been carp coming to the spot. As a good angling practice dictates that really I should do another night. I was prepared to go to the other end of the stretch for a change of scenery, but there's other anglers there and we didn't want to get in their way. So I've left them to it and I've come back into my spot for the night. When I bait like this, it isn't all about a spot, like, a spot. It's usually over a couple or 3 boats, and I bait along a big bit. And when I get here, I'll just be casting wherever, and wherever I get a bite, I'll concentrate the rods. It's not about individual tiny spots of ground. It's about baiting an area. And when I first came here with the echo sound, I went across, could see all the weed, it was a bright sunny day, and then all the weed disappeared and it got dark for about a boat length and a half, and then I started to see weed again. And I doubled back round with the sounder, checked it was all 10.5 foot, had a quick drop with the lead as I went through, and then baited it the first time. It was absolutely perfect. And that's where I've repositioned the rods for the night, exactly where they were last night. Fingers crossed something other than bream turns up. It's a nice old evening. Nice and calm out there anyway. You can see I've got the bivvy on. The bivvy makes a big difference. That's me interior light blinding you. Yes, there's my bivvy. Yeah, lovely times. Cooking kit. Rods are out. River's flat calm. It's beautiful. So yeah, I can't do any more. It's all looking good. Phone's on charge, got some porridge cooking. Put the telly on in a minute, watch a film, listen to some music, I don't know. But yeah, it's pucker. Well, what a just incredibly beautiful morning, and what an incredibly beautiful evening as well. I mean, it was just incredible last night. It was flat car. I mean, the first night I was in this swim, obviously, it was very, very blustery. It was trying to blow me off the mooring all the time. You know, the boat was crashing against this post. Last night, it was absolutely flat calm, quiet, so quiet here because there's no, there's just no one. The odd dog walker, but human voices are just non-existent, and it was just lovely. I sat here and I thought, I had a glass of wine, and then it started to get cold because it was clear, and then something rolled off my spot, probably 20 yards off my spot. But I was in here, the music was on, I was doing stuff, and I looked out and there was rings, and I thought, I wonder if there's fish. Anyway, I turned it all off because the night before, obviously, I couldn't see anything, and then I went and stood out the back with my glass of wine. Or mug of wine, and they were rolling downstream like small fish and stuff. Then all of a sudden something's gone flop, like heavy flop, right off my spot, but about 20, maybe 25 yards more into the main part of the river. And to all intents and purposes, it was just like a carp rolling. It probably was a carp rolling, but it was definitely deep, and I kept thinking to myself, because it's so quiet here, it could have been a bream, and it just sounded much bigger because it was silent here. But I kept thinking about it. I thought, I don't know, it was off the spot though. It was more out into the open river. Anyway, hopefully it'd be a carp, I said to myself. Went to bed. Anyway, midnight the bream started, a couple of bleeps. I had bobbins on last night. Because I'm at anchor and I'm tied to this post, I could have bobbins on. The boat's not slewing, so you're not getting lots of beep, 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 which is the main reason we don't use the bobbins unless we have to. But because I'm fishing to a back lead and across the flow, obviously if I haven't got bobbins on and I'm sleeping heavy and you get one bleep and it doesn't stir you, that bream can trundle like it did the night before, all the way back towards me, picking up all the sticks and debris as it does so.
So anyway, I had my bobbins on, I had the first bream, and then about, I think it was about probably 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard, like you do when you're a carp angler, I heard the line click. Before I heard a bleep, I heard the line click out the line clip, and the absolute one-toner. So I come stumbling out come stumbling out of bed, convinced I've got a carp, you know. Anyway, it took a bit of line initially, right over there, and I thought, oh, I can't believe my luck, I've only gone and caught a carp. And then it came across to me right, and I slowly inched it back, and it took a bit more line here, left and right. And then I turned the torch on because the water's so clear, and I could see a big, look like a pike. This pike, what on earth? Anyway, of course it was a big barbel. There's a nice midnight visitor. Big old barbel that, don't know how big he is, but I'm guessing he's probably somewhere between 13 and 14 pound maybe, I don't know. But anyway, they don't keep well. You shouldn't really retain barbel. And as nice as it would be to get a bit of proper footage in the morning of him, I don't want to risk him in any way, so I'm going to slip him back. And then after that, again, the bream continued. But I just stayed up for ages watching the moon. You know, it was literally, as I was laying in bed for ages, it was right down the river in front of me, and it was as big as any moon I've ever seen in my life. It was bizarre. But a really, really fantastic autumnal night on the river. It was calm. It was safe at anchor, so I slept really well in between the bream. You know, it's hard for people to explain. When you spend your whole life on the bank, and then you're at anchor in a boat rocking around at night, sleeping is really, really difficult. But I think it's something you know, it's like anything, you'll get used to it. But yeah, mega night, just a mega night. The fact that I haven't caught any carp is neither in or there to me. I've just had the best time. It's incredible. Oh, that was well, much needed. Well, it's so hard not to be distracted, sat here, surrounded by giant fish of all species. But anyway, we had a lovely night last night, or I had a lovely night on the river. The boys went away and I sort of settled down for the evening, and it, like, the contrast compared to the night before was just incredible. Like, from gale force winds and the boat being walloped by twigs and stuff coming off all the trees. And last night, absolute mill pond calm, fish rolling in the river, huge full moon, right dead centre through my doorway for much of the evening. It was just amazing. Loads more bream and a bonus barbel. You can never not be happy with a fish like that. It gave me a cracking bite and a superb fight. I put him back, got a little bit of GoPro footage to show you. But all in all, fantastic. I've had a great time. Looking forward to getting back and catching one. I'm off to France for a fortnight now. But when I'm back, I'm going to get straight back on the river and get stuck into it. And hopefully next time you see me, it'll be with a lovely Thames carp. That first year, for all the great it was, and I loved my boat, I actually sold it to a friend of mine after I got a new one. Yes, I got a new one. My friend who's now got it absolutely loves it, and you know, he comes from years and years of fishing on a boat under a brolly, so to now have a little cabin, it's like, and that's the thing, you know, having spent our whole life in our little bivvy, you know, our little, whether it's been a brolly or a, you know, or an armadillo or anything like that, it always is your home, innit? Your little bit of, like, your little bit of, you can escape from, even though you're in the outside world, you can escape from the outside world and be comfortable and out of the weather. But when you've got a boat and you've got a TV and you've got a fridge and you've got a kitchen and a grill and like a fan, and like, it is just life-changing for a fisherman. You're like so excited every night, can't wait to go to bed and put the bed out, put this, like, I just got so into it. Anyway, I got myself a new boat for this year. Already had a great engine, so I knew that that could come straight onto this, and all I had to do was do the boat up. It was a bit of a shell, to be honest. It had a toilet compartment here with like pipes going out the bottom, and like there was obviously going to be a lot of work. But do you know what? I found out that after the year before, waiting on people, not through any other fault than they were at work and like giving their time to a friend for nothing anyway, so you can't rush people. It meant I missed the start of the season and it nearly killed me with anxiety. But this year, I was determined, no matter how much fishing I missed through the spring, that this boat was going to be on the river and fishing and prepped and everything for June the 16th.
Cool. Wow, look at it. How unusual. Look at all the gaps between the scales and stuff. Oh man, that's incredible. Lovely, lovely. Wow. Do you know what? I'm absolutely over the moon with that. Just an incredible carp. Showing a few spawning abrasions, obviously been off recently to do its thing. But a couple of buckets of bait over the last 2 weeks. I've seen them creeping back for a feed, and wow, I'm just blown away with that. We're a few weeks into the season now, and although I was very lucky to catch a couple a week or so into the season from this very area, other than that, it'd been really hard going. So to come back last night on less than ideal conditions, stinking hot, come for a nice barbecue, and this morning I've been blessed with 2 lovely carp. This was the first one. What an amazing fish. Oh, mate. Hey! I'm really happy with that. That was just an incredible carp, wow. Wow. In typical live fashion, we got a load of noise started out of nowhere, the farmer's mowing the field, and I expect you can hear we've got a stunt pilot doing stunts literally right over the top of us. But anyway, wow, talk about chalk and cheese. After the first one, this one is a world apart. But most welcome, I tell you, the take of death, fantastic fight. Looks almost like a barbel, this one, and a big chunk out of his tail. Maybe he did have an encounter with an otter, who knows? But either way, it's time to get him back. It's roasting today, and I'm really happy to have caught it, I tell you. So a week before the start, my boat got its maiden voyage, and it was, you know, quite a stressful time. I was thinking I really shouldn't take the girlfriend. I end up shouting and swearing when I can't get it in the water. But anyway, everything went better than expected. My trailer's got 4 wheels rather than the 2 like my old one had, and it was actually really easy to get in the water. Half an hour, I reckon, at tops. But yeah, I floated it. Everything was cool. It didn't sink. There was no leaks. And yeah, we came upriver to this stretch, which is, I reckon, a good hour stretch to motor. Really, really, really wild, or as wild as it gets on the Middle Thames. And you know, you're sat here now, and I think you could show almost anybody, and they'd say, "Oh, you know, that's England, that is," because it's just classic English countryside. Really, really beautiful. And anyway, we did the night here, and we weren't fishing. Obviously, it wasn't the season, and it wasn't really anything other than to check the boat out. But on that first night, as it got dark above this island here, I'm pretty sure I saw a carp. I saw something touch the surface. Anyway, it was very slow and it sort of locked over a sort of really slow row, and I thought that was no brain. Anyway, I didn't think no more. You know, you see pike do weird stuff like that sometimes, but I guessed it was probably a carp, or at least I hoped it was. And in the run up to the start, this was one of the spots I baited purely because of that first sighting. And on the Thames often, you know, it's little things like that that get you your bite and get you a result. And sure enough, I put a little bit of bait here and ended up coming back for the start. Typical on the river, first week didn't pan out. My first spot where I literally had carp eating the bottom away turned out to be private, and I wasn't allowed to fish there, which was just one of those things. You know, I've been doing it a long time. Rather than getting depressed and throwing my toys out, which many people would, I think, especially when you've seen what I'd been seeing. But instead I went to my next choice of spot. That didn't pay off again. There was a regatta, and then upstream on my other spot there was also a regatta. It was just basically millions of boats, loads of people, a nightmare. And then I remembered back to when I'd come out before the start with my girlfriend. I thought, right, that spot is in the middle of nowhere. There shouldn't be anybody there. I'm pretty sure I saw a carp there. I'd baited it anyway. Anyway, I came back and I fished. It was like, to be honest with you, my chin was down a bit. After a few days, I wasn't really expecting anything to happen, and it was all done a bit half-hearted. And I fished upstream to the spot, which was a mistake, because at some point in the night I had a bite, and I only got woken by one bleep. And the fish had cut me off. A 20-pound nylon, I was convinced that what I'd lost was probably a carp. Typically, it came about that this was all of a sudden my first choice of spot. But it wasn't, it was way down the list. It's just that things get wheedled out very quickly on the river, stuff happens. So I put some bait in. Again, I baited with quite a lot of peanuts and krill boilies. The peanuts soaked in chilli and salt to really try and flavour the bottom in the area, knowing that the smell and certainly the residue would stay in the swim for a long time. I also put in quite a lot because I'd seen so much on this stretch, you know, it's so alive. Anyway, the next night I came back to the spot. It had been red hot all day and I'd just basically jumping from one bit of cover to another trying to keep shade, and I thought, right, I'm going to go to the spot up by the island and I'm going to do the night. There was about 100 children here all swimming, and I was convinced I was going to catch a carp, and nothing happens, and I was like, God, I don't know. So I put some bait in, and I went away not intending to come back really for a good few days, best part of a week. But I had my daughter that weekend and she was absolutely driving me mad to come out on the boat. Please, Daddy, I want to go out on the boat. Anyway, okay, we'll go to the spot up by the island. It's lovely there. We can take the dog, we can have a nice barbecue and relax. And it was a Friday night. I wasn't expecting anything, if I'm honest. And then in true Thames fashion, you know, out the blue in the morning after a night of just chub, small chub, medium-sized chub, but lots of chub, to the point where I'd nearly got bored with it and reeled the rods in. In the morning, out the blue, 7:30, one of them absolutely melted off, and I had a beautiful, ancient, literally all the investment, the time, the effort that I'd already put in, the disappointment was all forgotten in an instant, because I was looking down at this magnificent, like scaly 20-pound ancient old river carp, and I was blown away. But in true Thames fashion, I'd actually packed up, you know, I thought something clipped the surface out over the baited area, and I thought, oh, do you know what, I'm going to put another rod out just for half an hour to see. And sure enough, it went, and I had another beautiful Thames mirror. So it was like, out of nothing, you know, literally nothing, one tiny sighting that could or could not have been a carp. Out of that, a little bit of prep and a couple of nights, and I got a most amazing brace for opening week. I was just blown away. And I came back a couple of times after baiting this spot with nothing, and I thought, due to the hot weather, I thought they'd gone off to spawn. You know, a couple of those carp I'd caught, the first one of them was really plump and quite a young looking fish, and I wagered that they'd gone off to do their thing, hence they hadn't been back on the bait. And that brings us round to this week. I'm now 4 fish in, we're a few weeks into the season. I've caught my third and fourth fish this morning, but you know, again, by complete chance, just something unravelled from a bit of prospecting. Got to keep your boat clean, haven't you? Like I'm out on the river, I don't want it to look like a carp fishing boat at any cost. So I keep it nice and clean and sparkly white, and you just got to keep on top of it each trip. Well, obviously, as it was, you know, it's close to the start of the season, I'm looking for shallow oxygenated water on the sole basis that if the fish would have spawned, and they should have done in this weather, and the carp I've caught have pretty much borne that out now, that they would be looking for you know, a nice area to recover from the rigours of spawning, and that would be either very close to where it had taken place, or within a few days of settling down after spawning and sort of getting their strength back enough to go somewhere. They usually head to the weirs or some oxygenated bits of river, because you automatically assume that all the rivers are exactly the same. It's not the case, and like even through here, like we've got here, we've got a sweeping bend coming out of a weir. The current on this side is swifter and it's carrying more oxygenated water from the weir, so even all the way down through here, you know, there's always an opportunity. But you're just looking for I'm looking for spots that other people can't capitalise on. You know, I'm not driving hours and hours and investing lots and lots of time and effort to come back and find, as I already have this season, that somebody's been fishing very close by. So I'm ultra cautious on that front, often bypassing what appear to be the better spots, you know, on paper, shall we say, for spots that I can bait them to that aren't as obvious or that won't get discovered or fished, let's say that. So I'm always doing it with a little bit of a plan. Exactly as it's just proved at the spot I was fishing. You know, I didn't intend to be fishing there, but it turned out there was some fish to be caught there, and little plans developed. You know, baiting, going away. So yeah, and that's the case up and down the river.
The summer was brilliant. Every day I was in a weir pool, because it was always cooler in a weir pool, and there was always some willows or somewhere you could park up and spend the day sleeping or swimming. I was like a modern day Huckleberry Finn, and I loved every second of it, but it was gone in the flash of an eye. Like, it was almost approaching autumn, and I needed to have a plan. I thought I need to get my teeth into something, and I sort of knew the place that I was headed. I'd known for a couple of years about a really big carp in the river that had lived in one spot. It'd been caught by a few people. You know, there's no such thing as a carp that don't get caught. But this one was different. A 25 pounder is a very big river carp. A 30 pounder, well, it's a fish of a lifetime. I'm not gonna mince my words. It's a fish of a lifetime. Anything bigger than that, well, come on. It is like, it's almost pie in the sky. But I knew of a 40 pounder, not just a 40, not any old 40 pounder, not a lake one that had escaped into the river and all of a sudden it was people are fishing for it because it's now a river carp when 2 minutes ago it spent its life in a lake. Not this one. This one we managed to trace back for many years. It had been in the river for a long time. I'd done a little bit of looking now. I don't want to fish a bit of river that's like a lake where I know that you got an A team and this backup fish and those back. I didn't want to know that, but I'd seen a few pictures from the stretch, including some lovely ancient scaly Thames carp, which is what it was all about to me from the outset. I knew that there was a good head of fish in this stretch. I didn't know how many. I didn't want to know. The first thing I want to know about what's in there is when I open that mesh and I'm like absolutely blown away by what I see. So my planning went into overdrive, like literally I started to think to the nth degree. I was going to a stretch that had a very big carp in it, and I thought to myself, I'll fish really hard for 2 months, I'll throw myself into it, heart and soul, and I will see what I can do. And it's been, like I say, lovely time summer, lots of red wine, loads of barbecues, but also lots of sitting around on the boat, and I was starting to feel it. You know, I'm not no spring chicken. So I thought, right, it's time that I get out and start doing some running once more. It's getting towards the autumn, you know, I'll get back into the swing of it. 3 days out on the boat a week has got to be tempered with some exercise to just balance it all out. So I went out running, and on the very first night, I run at night with a head torch around the lakes usually, and I fell over and broke my ankle. I couldn't believe it. I was in so much pain. I must have been like a shot chimp when I broke it. Like I screamed out and like collapsed to the floor, rolling around in the misty grass. And I thought for a while, I was probably 2 or 3 miles from home, and I was like, how am I going to get home? And I crawled after about 10 minutes, like the initial blinding pain subsided, and I managed to get myself back to the car. But it was quite clear I hadn't sprained it. This was much more serious. Anyway, I thought, you know, I'm super, I'll be all right. I'll be all right by tomorrow, you know, a night's rest and I'll be fine. And I woke up in the morning, I couldn't even move my leg, let alone stand up. I was in absolute agony, and I just knew. I thought I'd broken something. So I hobbled about for a day or so and thought, I baited up. It's the time's building up. I need to get back there after 5 days. Really, the bait should, you know, it'd be prime. And I couldn't even walk, let alone get the boat in on my own. I was thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, I went to the hospital. Sure enough, I'd broken it. They gave me a comedy robot boot and some crutches and told me like I've got to stay at home. And I was thinking, there's no way that I'm staying at home. I wanted to be back on the river on the Monday. I think it turned out I got back on the river on the Wednesday. And the weather had been good. We'd had rain and things were changing. It was quite clearly after such a long period. You know, we had that stormy front came in mid-September and everything changed. And I was desperate to be here, like absolutely desperate. I wasn't going to be at home, like just worrying about what might have been. But, you know, I had to get down. So I got the rods out. I got the rods out on dark. Same thing again. I crept down to where I'd baited. Just opposite, there was a big tree. And I pulled in behind there, and I pulled it in behind this tree, ran up the front, threw an anchor out, and I was tight out off the bank. I wasn't looking directly at the houses opposite. I was just upstream of those, and so they couldn't really see me unless they actually looked for me. Anyway, I kept all the lights off until it got dark. I put the rods out, and then put a candle on and watched a film or whatever. And in the early hours, it was either 1 or 2 o'clock, I woke up to I heard the bell jangle, and then I heard the line come out the clip, and like I said before, like a fiberglass boat, and I've got the buzzers fixed to the fiberglass side, so of course that's like a speaker. Not only as soon as it comes out the clip and starts pulling line off a tight clutch, you can feel it through the whole boat. There's none of this. All you need buzzers and all. You don't need anything. As soon as it's out the clip, you know you've got a carp on the end, and it absolutely tore off at like early hours. But Bert jumped out of bed and started barking. The boat's rocking, and like. It's quite common, you know, anybody that was watching, you know, from the outside looking in, it must be quite comical. Anyway, I got to the rod and it was pulling line off a tight clutch across the river. I played it for a while anyway, toing and froing, but it was an epic fight. I had a bright head torch on, I could see way down into the river and I could see this mirror twisting around and that. It was just absolutely, everything about that night, every single thing about that night was just perfect, despite the fact that I had a broken ankle, obviously. But it went in the net, it was a £20 mirror. Like, I was just over the moon. Look at his little dorsal, look. He's a nice carp, mate. Beautiful. I'm very happy with him, despite his little nicks and bits and bobs. Well, he's a wild thing, isn't he? Lovely big mouth, mad-looking dorsal, and just the most peculiar shape. But all are welcome. Well, as I'm looking at that one, deciding what to do, I've looked up at heard one of the other bells jangle. The head torch is on because I'm taking the rig out of this fish. I've looked and the other rod's buckled over and it absolutely nearly pulled the rod out of the boat. And that was a very different fight from the outset, straight upstream. In fact, as soon as it was starting to go upstream, within a couple of seconds of hooking it, I knew it was a big fish. But more than that, I also instantly knew I was in trouble, because I was moored up behind a big fallen tree, and I thought, well, if it goes upstream and then comes back down this side, like, I thought there's every chance I'm going to lose this fish. How I hadn't anticipated that before, I don't know. I just imagined that they'd all go tearing off downstream and then swinging against my own bank, and I'd gingerly bring them all the way back. I wasn't prepared for this one going upstream. So I sunk the rod. In the end, I had the rod sunk not just past the reel, but past my arm. I was leant over the side of the boat with both hands underwater, just winding on a tight line. And when your hands are in the water, you can't feel anything through the rod. All your senses are gone. You're just winding, and you're just relying on how hard it is to wind as to how tight the line is. And anyway, same thing. It came back past me, and as it came back past me, just skirted the tree, and as I like looked down into the water with my head torch on, I just saw this like just huge scaly serpent like carp, like, and I was just instantly, my legs went. I couldn't feel the broken ankle. I don't remember that play, you know, anything about that throughout the whole fight. It was literally just, I had this huge scaly carp on, and I was panicking a bit like you do, because in the torchlight it just looked enormous. Didn't know how big it was, but it was like just a giant. And it sort of hit the surface downstream of the boat. The flow was a little bit stronger on the surface, and it started to take it away from me. But I'm using short rods, and I sort of had to tip down a bit, and it swung him in behind the boat, and literally I reached for the net, and he was in.
Oh mate, that's got to be worth the pain. Please let it be worth the pain. Oh God, look at it. It's just the most incredible thing. Look at the mouth for a fish of this age. Look at it. Absolutely mind-bendingly incredible. Oh, my foot's going to hurt after this, but do you know what? I don't care. I'm blown away, literally blown away to see this fish. I've looked at pictures of it loads, this very one, like to have it in my hands and to see it in the torchlight, like last night, you know, in the dark, coming up towards the boat, and I'm sort of crocked with a bad leg and trying to go around the corner, and I saw it in the torchlight, and I was like, oh. Wicked, I tell you what, it's a 30-pound Thames carp. It's actually a PB Thames mirror for me, and what a fish to do it with, do you know what I mean? I spent my entire life fishing for carp like this, carp that like captivated me literally from a small boy. And 30 years down the road, I can't believe I'm saying that, with me not far off 50 years old, and I'm still catching carp that I dreamt of as a child. And it's a long old road to get here, believe me. I've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and just the most insane amount of effort to get to where I am now. Yeah, you can pop down the river and catch one, but it ain't that easy. And fish like this, wow. One of the rarest things in the British Isles, this is, like quite literally. And whether you're an angler or not, you can't fail but to be mesmerised by just how magnificent it is. I'm blown away, absolutely blown away. Whew. They're the ones. They're the ones. That's it. You know, if you had to give me a picture to sum up the expense and the effort and the anxiety and the worry and the obsession, well, that's it. You know, what an incredible thing. Anyway, after catching this most magnificent serpent, like a proper long 30-pound fully scaled mirror, you know, the stuff of dreams for a Thames angler, like that can't be overstated, you know, the stuff of dreams. So of course I'm overjoyed, like it's all come good in like the most spectacular fish, that probably one of the best ones I've ever caught, let alone never seen, like a real incredible carp, lovely. So brace, you know, I'd applied myself. There's a lot of work getting to that point. But obviously there was clear that there was opportunity there. There could well have been other fish about. It wasn't like I was seeing loads, but I had seen a few show downstream of me, and I had a feeling that I knew where they were spending some time. So anyway, I went away, restocked the boat, went to come back, disaster. My trailer blew up on my way to the river, and it was like suicidal, you know, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. In one hand, I'd been given this amazing opportunity, and then I'd had it snatched cruelly from me, and that's just seems to be the way of the river, you know. Things go great one minute, and then the next minute it's disaster, and your head's in your hands. But of course, I made frantic phone calls to my mechanic. Listen, Paul, if you can get here, just get here and get this done. I really need it. Anyway, I had to order these bits. It turned out where I'd driven back in like
with the wheel almost exploding, the bearing had come off, and by the time I got home the wheel actually did come off as I was driving home, and I had to stop and pick it up. But where it had been like rocking on the shaft, it had taken all the thread off, so I couldn't have changed. I had to get everything new. So I had to buy new suspension arms, new bearings, new hubs, got it all ordered on eBay. Mate, he promised me 24-hour delivery, like I was frantic, you know, I really need this on it. Got the trailer back together, took longer than I'd have thought. So actually when I should have been back, I missed 4 days, maybe 5 days by the time I got back again. And I was convinced all the work would be for nothing. The bait would have been long gone, the fish would have gone with it. But you know what? I don't know how, but some, you know, like I said, like this whole season seems to have been largely reliant on luck for my good fortune and the fish I've caught. And sure enough, I got back here, and would you believe they were still here? And not only were they still here, I only went and caught another 30-pounder. Chalk and cheese, like the most different carp from the first one you can never imagine. The first one was a 3-foot-long scaly monster, and this was a deep, short, wide, grey chunk, like an absolute beauty nonetheless. But wow, do you know what I mean? You know, if with the best swim in the world, people say to you, you know, you've done all this work, Nick, and you know, what an amazing journey and all this, you know, what do you want to get from it? And I said, oh, you know, I always said I'd just be happy to get a few bites, mate. You know, they're a rarity and getting rarer. So I'd just be happy to get a few bites. A 30-pounder would have been a dream season, but to catch 2 in a couple of trips, like, oh my God. Well, you know, what does that do to you as an angler? Like, well, it motivates you. To hell with the driving, to hell with the expense of fuel and all the time, and I'm coming back. And not only am I coming back, but I'm baiting and coming back. And that's where I am now. I'm fishing this stretch, there's other anglers about. I'm trying my very hardest to like make it as low-key as possible, the stuff I'm doing. And that's really the reason that we can't show you everything about where I'm fishing. Because it's just simply out of respect to the other people that are fishing here. You know, you wouldn't like it if somebody came and filmed somewhere you were fishing and blew it open and caused you to have loads of people descending on your venue. Well, I don't intend to do that here either. So like, as much as we can tell you, and much as I can show you, of course I will. Of course I will. But like, I just have to be mindful that it isn't my river. It's around twilight when the river really comes alive, though, when it changes. You know, it's tangible, the change. You know, when we're perch fishing at dusk, you know, that's when it's all like, that's it, that's perch o'clock, that's when the river, you can catch nothing all day, but that last change of light when it's like literally, that's everything. And it's the same as a carp angler, you know, it's that last change of light. That's when I'm sneaking down to my spot, when I'm getting the rods out and then getting settled in the cabin with the beautiful view and everything. Yeah, twilight is a special time on the river. It's that it is that transverse period, you know, like in the day to day it's been really bright and sunny and not actually that nice, not much shade and a bit too warm for me, you know, but as soon as the light goes, then everything changes. Like, you know, your senses come alive, you're ready for the night's fishing, and you know, you've been waiting all day. You put a bit of bait in when you reeled in that morning, you might be going back to the same spot, or you've prepped somewhere new, or you've got a bit of information, or you've seen something. So it's always, every night is like, I don't get it on a lake. You know, if I go and fish on a lake, I go and I can move every day and quite often do, but I don't get the same feeling that I do on the river, because every day it's like it's all started again. It's like super exciting. And I just love every minute of it, really. In 2 trips, I've had 30 pounders each time, like, which is just, you know, in your wildest dreams. But I was faced with a stark reality that if I didn't do something and do it quick, it was all going to fall apart in front of me. So from the next trip, I had to do something. I made a really bold decision to move the whole shebang, baiting area, everything, downstream. I didn't want to go far. I needed to go below, basically, where the other people were fishing. And I needed to go far enough below them that even if they were there when I was there, they wouldn't see me, should I catch any. You have to start thinking tactically, which isn't something you have to do in a fishing situation on the river usually. But I could see, you know, I had it clear as the most obvious thing to me, that I was going to be getting a phone call that basically I'd caught it for someone else in my baiting. So I moved it. I moved it to the very end of the next stretch of the next straight down. It was a lovely bit of river. It was a bit of a pinch point on a bend. Instantly, as I boated up, I looked at it, I thought, this looks the part here. Dead water out in front up to halfway. Sounded it all out. 9 foot, 9.5 foot, lots of big beds of potamogeton, and that was the key. Historically, the local anglers have told me that the fish tend to migrate down the stretch as the year moves on and as, you know, towards winter. But what they hadn't taken into account was I'd sounded out the whole river. I knew that the weed was still standing tall. It wasn't even showing signs of dropping back. Them fish weren't coming down the river. They were staying up at the top of the section where it was super weedy, and like when you boated, it was like an aquarium. And that leads us up to the final week, really. So I baited heavy and I came back on the Monday, and the last few days went in the blink of an eye. The first night I had 20 bream or something. Before it even got dark, it was a bream hell. I remember thinking, what have you done? Like, you've moved from like a carp rich bit half a mile downstream to a bit where they're not. But I just, you know, I had that faith, I had that belief that they would come. And weird stuff happened. I dropped in, I caught 2 small carp. The next night, I caught 5 bream before it got dark. And then as it got dark, I had like a massive twangle on my rod, because I'm using bells, remember. And I thought, that's weird, you know, even with back leads and not getting many liners and stuff. And I thought, God, them old clumsy bream are in the swim, like, but I stopped catching them and I couldn't work out why. Went through the whole rest of the night. Several times it had me out, bleeps and bells, and I've gone out there, nothing's happening. Like a couple of them, I see it, tip bang over, big jangle. I'm running out there, nothing on the end. I just picked the rod up. Bream on there, got to be. Nothing. Hey, I don't understand. Of course it was him. It was the Leviathan of all Leviathans. He was on my spot like a big, fat, angry dog. And what was happening? I mean, it's very easy after the event to know what's built up to it. But he'd been on me. He'd been on me that last trip as well. He'd been there. He was coming out at dark to that spot where I'd fed him. And everything else was pushed away while he did his feeding. Without a doubt, a couple of people that had caught it previously had told me, oh, you know, he was the first one after baiting a few times. And like, it's easy to say it now, but he was there. He was coming. Like literally, as soon as it got dark, wherever he was nearby, I suspect in the snags opposite or just upstream, he was coming onto that spot, scaring everything else away and eating everything that was there. And the very next night, Storm Callum came ramping through the Thames Valley. I'd been sat here for how many weeks looking at the barometer on my old boat, 1040, 1030, cursing. That night, 1,000. Like, it had dropped 30 bar points or whatever it is in 12 hours. The bream started, ding-ling-ling, look out, bobbing tight, bit of a twitch, bream. And then once it got dark, all stopped again. Couple of big hefty bangs on the rod. Couldn't understand it. The rain started to build in. I actually at one point zipped the whole canopy down, sat in here watching something on the video and cooking and having a lovely time. And then it sort of went through that storm and I opened the back up and the river went quiet and I sat and watched and I was amazed. I drank a whole bottle of wine or half a bottle I'd left and I was just enjoying life like I hadn't done for a long time, and I can't tell you how good it felt. And then I remember dozing off and I woke up to a bell and then a ripping clutch. I'll be honest with you, as soon as I picked the rod up, it was like a tuna. And it felt like a short carp, but quick. And I thought, instantly, ain't a big one, and it just kept going and going and going. But some of them do, even 10-pounders. So you let them go, because if you try and stop them and they've already built up head of steam, you'll just straighten the hook or snap something. So, you know, like I've got heavy kit, I'll just let it go. You take all the line you want, mate. After a while, the wind's picking up and it's blowing downstream. And the anchor, I've got an anchor at the back and an anchor at the front, and this fish is just pulling and pulling. I was a bit shocked, really. It was very, very powerful, but it'd gone a long way through an awful lot of weed. So in the end, it stopped, and it was just inch. It just seemed to take forever to get it back. And all the time, still convinced that it's a 20-pound common, some mad tuna, probably a dumpy one or something. And then in the torchlight, because it's like a bit misty and it's hard to see, even with a very bright torch, it makes it harder to see, doesn't it? And I had a special strong, I'm looking, and I saw something yellow eventually, and I've been doing this for God knows how long, bringing it back downstream. It had already pulled me off my anchor. It pulled so hard upstream, it dislodged the anchor on the marginal shelf and spun the whole boat round against the wind. All the other rods are bent round and bleeping, and I was like, oh, flipping hell. Anyway, in the torchlight, something yellow. Looky, what is it? And as it's come to me, it's a common, and it's waddled off again and gone away and come round this side of the boat. And as it popped up, I realised it's a mirror. It's a mirror. And then as it hit the surface, something in my head said, "It's him. It's him." And instantly, my heart rate went from 120 or something, like I've been running, to anxiety attack. Literally, my heart. I thought I was gonna pass out. And I remember it going in the net. And I remember pulling the net towards me. And as I went to pull it, I couldn't even pull the net towards me. It was so big in the bottom of it, like a big bag of wet sand. And I literally, I was retching. I was so overwhelmed. No carp in my entire angling life, and I have had some incredible experiences, but nothing. It was such a powerful moment. I literally collapsed in the bottom of the boat, and I was having a whitey, and I sort of all I remember was laying on the landing net pole, thinking if I'm going to faint, I've just got to remember to lay on the pole so it don't get away. I didn't faint, but I tell you what, it was bloody close. And when I looked in the net and saw it, it doesn't matter what I say. You'll see the footage of it. You'll be able to see for yourself. Nothing. And I mean nothing could have prepared me for what was in that net, the enormity of it. And not just the carp itself, because the carp was beyond my wildest dreams, quite literally. I've caught bigger carp, never catch anything that would have the impression or the effect on me that carp did. Just such a magnificent creature, such a story, such a battle, such passion put into trying to catch the bloody thing. Everything about it, it will echo through time itself. That's how special it was. And I don't think anybody, it's a 50-pound, it's 50-pounders everywhere these days. A 50-pounder out of the River Thames, it wasn't just big, it wasn't just bigger than anything else, it's almost unimaginable. And I can't even tell you how privileged I feel just to have seen it, let alone caught it myself. But it just goes to show you need to have a little faith. It's just reinforced to me even more how important it is. Chase your dreams, be your own man. All the things I've said a million bloody times before that people must be getting bored of. But like, I was rewarded. I was rewarded for my belief, for my faith. I kept the faith. And I hope it inspires you to chase your dreams like I did, you know.
I was searching for an open door. I was looking for a piece of mind.
Oh my life. Oh my God, look at it. Right, we'll go for a lift, I think. If everybody's up for it. I don't know if my back is. Oh, mate, that is a buzz. Look at it. I'm literally overwhelmed. It's just the most magnificent thing I've ever laid my eyes on. Look at it, there's nothing that comes close to it. Oh, you absolute incredible beast. I just can't believe my luck. Amazing, just amazing. I'm just absolutely lost for words with this carp.
We were standing in the freezing rain. Honey, how could I forget? In the distance were the warning bells, but I knew that you weren't caving yet. I hold this house up with my own two hands, so you can make it out. So you can make it out. I know you're all I have. So blue, like a rose in a riverbed.
It's gone back. I'm happy with that, really happy with that. I can take my foot off now. It's been 5 days a week on the boat, have my little girl for the weekend, 5 days a week on the boat, going shopping, I'm been like a robot, you know, and working and very frustrating, but then it's paid off in the end. I'm happy with that. Lovely times. Crumpets, they smell like victory. You know it's a good day when you start it with a nice toasted crumpet. And do you know what? I've been doing it absolutely every day. I get up, normally, I'm quite decadent. Normally the first day I have toasted croissant with my coffee. I always have 2 coffees, but I'm so strong now that you can have a heart attack. So I only have 2, otherwise my day's ruined. And I have croissant, or if I've been lucky enough to catch one, I'll have crumpets. So we're having crumpets, I should say, today. Hang on a minute, I've just caught a 50-pounder. Why am I making the bloody tea? How did that work about? Yeah, it's really hard to put into words. I feel a bit of disappointment because every time I really, really want to catch something, you know, I see something that really inspires me, which isn't often because of the modern way fishing is, everybody's chasing the same ones and stuff. And I think, like, that one was not unknown, it was known to the people that knew, obviously. But it was just so jaw-dropping. So yeah, anything I said when I was doing it or in the run-up to the pictures and that, it was just garbled rubbish, I think, because I just don't know what was going on.
yeah, I'm overwhelmingly happy right now, and I'm sure as the day will progress, like it will sink in and sort of become a reality. It's just the magnitude of what I've caught that I'm struggling to deal with. Not the carp itself, which is enough, but a big fish like that, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's been one of those years. I said it recently, I've had the most lucky year. I've loved every second of it. I've loved absolutely every second, but it ain't been easy. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to say anything really. Nothing I say is going to embellish the story or embellish that fish, is it? Like, that's it. Have a look at the fish and that's it. Everything else is by the by. I didn't spend years to catch it. Did I deserve to catch it? Probably not. The Thames isn't full of giants, far from it, like far from it. And they're ever more increasingly under threat. So, you know, you have to make hay while the sun's shining, the old saying says, and like, I did that. And for once, it paid off.